Okay, good day to all of you. I hope you had a good Thanksgiving here with your families. Today we thought that I thought that it would be good for you to have a different also experience because we have since it's a research methods class, as you know, since the start we have seen how people in business like McCarthy is doing research. We have seen some theory in the Bobby's book. We have seen other researchers, professors in video, professors like here. And since we are in the last week, I thought it would be a nice case to see some students from, if you follow my mails in there, some students, I have sent you a mail for that, some students from different majors to see how they do research in a certain class that is an ad hoc class, a class where you take it just to do research on a literature review basis and then continue to do other things. These type of classes are offered in Drexel. They are not in the master schedule. You have to make an inquiry for that if you think you have a specific interest of something, or if you think that you are going to do some type of research towards the end of your studies, and you could do that as a preparation. These are called independent studies, and we have 3 of the students who took that from the Greek studies. They took 2 different courses. They will get during the introduction when they present. So I thought it would be a nice case for you to see the outcome of their class, most of it, because they have started these classes. I will show you how it looks. They started in the start of the quarter, and every week they had to do a summary from literature, every week. And right now in the end, they are creating a paper and also a presentation. So, since the whole experience of that class was a research-oriented experience, of course, in a different topic, because they come from biological sciences and biological engineering, those departments. So I thought it would be nice to see how they did it, and also if you like to have some questions, because in my view that's a very nice opportunity for you to have, especially those majors that have a senior thesis in them. And most of the majors here have a senior thesis in them, so it may be nice for you when you take classes to create a class with a professor that is towards a certain piece of research that you want to do, either to prepare yourself for your senior thesis or for something you want to do after the exam. And then this class could be from 1 to 3 credits, and you start accumulating the literature, and the students here will tell us how, and what was their inspiration and their motivation to do that. And also, after that, you can, that's a class that would be in your curriculum event with a specific name that shows that you have a difference from the other students, because they're not all students in universities take independent studies, but those who take can claim them, because, for example, whenever you are in any type of interview, you can start arguing about that class, because it shows that you have the critical ability to understand the importance and also to find the literature with professors. So that's a very nice case for as an option, because it is offered in Drexel as an idea, and that's why because the whole cycle of the class is research oriented. I thought it would be nice for you to see their work, and also you would see you can ask questions, and for them it would be a nice case to present in a live audience. It's always good as an experience. So before they start, we have a PowerPoint here. It will take us about 20 minutes. This class was about medicine, Greek fathers of medicine. They will be, I didn't introduce them, but they will be introduced. That's why I left for them. And just to show you how the class looks, that was the class. There is an accumulation of papers and articles, and also a certain list of assignments that has to do with the summaries weekly. just to know that because in your case you did 2 summaries from 2 articles and the proposal. They have to do a summary almost every week, the paper in the end, and also the presentation. That's why this is in Drexel curriculum. It is called independent study. And again, in my view, think of it as a very nice tool that the curriculum gives you to go closer to your interest and your cases. Okay, so we'll start with them, and then we'll continue with the actual part of the class. So we have Angela, Beverly, and Morena here, so they will be with you.
Thank you so much. So hello everyone. We are currently students taking the independent study Greek 399, or Greek Fathers of Medicine. Doesn't that sound cool? So anyways, my name is Beverly, and I'm a biomedical engineering major, and I hope to go to med school one day.
My name is Morena. I'm a bio major, also pretty much trying hopefully medicine as well.
My name is Angela, and I'm also a biomedical engineering major, and I hope to go to med school. So some reasons that we chose to take this course is to develop a better understanding and appreciation of influential Greek figures, so basically the Greek Fathers of Medicine. And this course also offers a great amount of flexibility to explore our areas of interest. So we can explore medical terminology, which has a good foundation from Greek, like the language itself. And we can also look at cardiology, ophthalmology, or anything that we're interested in. And we can learn about awesome stuff that would otherwise not be covered in other courses.
Also, I was super specifically for medical course, that would be future asset to my personal growth in the academic field. And I also find interesting to be immersed in literature that is of interest and beneficial.
So we didn't have to go through the proposal and we had to submit a proposal for who we are, what we wanted to do with the course, and why we wanted to do it. And so we got it approved, and here we are writing, read essays and every stuff every week. All right, so let's get to the fun stuff. From mythology to medicine. I'm sure all of you have seen some of these medical symbols before, correct? All right, so which of these do you think is the caduceus? The one on the left, middle, or very right? Can we take a vote? How many of you think it's the left one? The caduceus. The middle? Anyone? How about the very right? You got it! It is the right one. Okay, so this is the caduceus. It is the staff of the messenger god Hermes. And originally it wasn't the medical symbol, but some American writer in the early 1900s got it confused with the staff of Asclepius. So ever since then it's kind of been interchangeably used as the medical symbol. But the actual medical symbol is the staff of Asclepius. And Asclepius, it was actually a physician god of healing. And he always had a serpent wrapped around his staff, which symbolized the renewal and rejuvenation because of the shedding and stuff that snakes do. And Angela here will talk about the Star of Life right here. So the last symbol that you guys seem to be more familiar with is called the Star of Life. And do you guys know what it represents? Any guesses? Shout it out. Yeah. Well, it represents emergency medicine specifically. And each of the rods of the Star of Life actually represents something. For example, maybe transport the patient to more definitive care like a hospital setting instead of just out in the field. So now to the Fathers of Medicine. The first two individuals we will discuss are Hippocrates and Galen. So I'm sure many of you have also heard about Hippocrates. He lived from 470 to 360 BC, and he is also considered the father of Western medicine. He was one of the members of the Asclepiad, which was known for the divine healing, as was with the staff of Asclepius. And he was one of the first to introduce the scientific method, because as you could probably imagine, back in the day, like 2,000 years ago, there was a lot of religion and superstition that kind of ran society. And he decided that maybe the scientific approach was the better way to approach medicine and science. And one of the earlier findings of Hippocrates was the four humors, which is known to be false at this point. and it consists of yellow bile, blood, phlegm, and black bile. So, how many of you have heard of like bloodletting and stuff before? Like back in the Middle Ages? So that was about like keeping the balance of the four humors. Like if you had a fever or something, then it's like you had too much fire and like blood. So they kind of had to decrease the amount of blood, so they let it out to kind of regain the balance and return you to health. So that was the basic understanding at that point, and it seemed to be pretty successful because they did use it for several centuries after that.
They still do it in India now.
Really?
They still do it in India.
I did not know that.
They cut people's feet and they let the blood out.
Ow.
So as was mentioned, Hippocrates' work in Physiology was established a turning point in history on how medicine is conceived and how it is applied. And his legacy extends to other fields of medicine, including ear anatomy and rhinology that we'll see on the next slide. And specifically the work that is included on the heart by the Hippocratic corpus includes detailed observations on the localization of the heart. It was believed that it was found in the hollow space between the lungs, and Hippocrates believed that it was beneficial for the heart to be in a specific place specifically because it had the opportunity to use what they call the natural coldness of the lungs to deal with the excessive heat that was burned upon by the constant movement of the heart. The heart was described pyramidally shaped with a dark red color with deep holes and a triple clear substance. What is also interesting is that you see the heart being described, or there are specific radiation coming from the heart described in this work, which could be referring to the electrical activity of the heart. There's not much known about it at this time. The presence of two ventricles is also included in the observations. And we'll go to the next slide. So Hippocrates' work in rhinology was of the therapeutic methods were applied in the 5th century BC. So this corresponds to the first significant knowledge of reconstruction, nasal injury that was done at the time. He classified nasal injuries based on the severity of the case, with simple bumps of soft tissue or complicated fractures. And his work includes detailed information on the positioning of the nasal bone using exterior pressure.
Alright, so now we're going to talk about Galen. This guy's my favorite. He is incredible. So, one of his major works was he was one of the first physicians to actually delve deeply into research of the spinal cord and the kidneys. So he was doing very, very focused research. And he was one of the very first surgeons in ancient Greece. So about 2,000 years ago, he started, improvising his own methods of surgical healing. And he was very successful, and that's why he is very well known. And about 2,000 years ago, he also discovered how to remove cataracts. Can you believe that? He basically, healed those who couldn't see. So, I didn't want to get too graphic, but, cataracts basically, blocks the eye so that you couldn't really see. But using a long needle, you could actually break it and extract it, so you could recover the sight. And he did write volumes and volumes of treatises and his findings, probably just to mess with the medical students for the next couple of generations. So next we're going to move into exercise and physiology, and in this section we will cover these other individuals. So, Physiology. He was a messenger, and back in the day, without any vehicles or anything, he delivered messages by foot. And in his final days, he covered almost 150 miles in a few days, which is pretty insane. And his last message was, "Rejoice, we conquered," because Greece just won a war. And unfortunately, that was his last message, because soon after he delivered it, he keeled over and died. So the Physiology syndrome in cardiomyopathy is caused by extreme endurance exercise. So running a couple hundred miles in just a few days is probably not a good idea. And it can cause damage and scarring to the cardiac tissues, which can lead to lethal arrhythmias. Theophilus is known to be the father of modern anatomy, and he also did many surgeries, and his most notable contributions are for the nervous system and circulatory system. For the nervous system, he actually categorized different types of neurons and circulatory system, he found the difference between veins and arteries. He also had many other anatomical contributions, but his most notable are the nervous system and circulatory system.
Alright, so Dr. Solarski, he's been finding evidence of this area that is probably known as Bibliographic and the rest later on in the field of medicine. But he has contributed in the field of medicine as well. He was a physician, politician, and scholar from Shota, I don't know, right near Kermit, which is part of what they consider northern England. So he carried an important part of his research in Naples, Italy. He studied a variety of species, and he described the anatomy of the spinal cord and the brain. So we see like the first research done in the field of neuroanatomy. What was interesting about him is that he took a comparative consideration in his research, which was not done previously. So, and this is also half a century before Darwin's work on the evolutionist approach. And he also described the presence of a nerve that was connected to the spinal cord and the electrical cord. Alright, so we have Aristotle. He's a significant figure in the field of anatomy as well. He gave a more detailed description of the heart than we've seen before. He described a three-ventricular model with the presence of a junctions between the right and left ventricles. It seems through his work that he felt that the vena cava and the pulmonary artery were branches of the same vessel, which he described as the large veins. He also described the presence of the inner lining of the heart, and he described the aorta as a nervous vessel.
So, this next guy is called Pedanius Dioscorides. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing it. But he was a physician, pharmacist, and botanist. And I would also like to add that he is a great artist. I mean, look at this drawing. Isn't that amazing? I think it's amazing. And he also wrote a notable collection of herbs and medicinal plants in his 5-volume work called De Materia Medica. And there are many categories of his plants, which is pretty much like a mini pharmacy. And some of them include ginger, and that's known to be a warming plant. And as some of you may know, it can soothe sore throats, like when you have a cough or other stuff like that.
Alright, so the famous diet. It's a healthy and environmentally sustainable diet. It's known to improve health, cardiovascular, overall mental and cognitive health in individuals. The first origin of the diet since to be based on the Cretan diet specifically, which was thought to contain 40% energy from the fat, 12 to 16% energy from the protein sources, 40 to 45% from carbohydrate sources, 3 to 4 tablespoons per day of olive oil, along with 6 servings of cereal products. So the diet is associated with a variety of beneficial aspects, including things such as inflammation, oxidative stress, modulation of neuronal and cell signaling pathways, and release and intestinal function. So all of these results, what they're trying to tell us is that this could be a possible preventative approach to a variety of medical conditions, although further research needs to be conducted.
Would you like to explain to the pyramid how?
Okay, so we see the usage of the products from daily to weekly to monthly, and it's proportioned in such a way that it would not be harmful to us. So we have olive oil. It's considered it was used daily, and there's extensive research on that is actually beneficial for a variety of conditions, as well as the vegetables, the fruits, the dried fruits, and meat. And then we move on to last usage of the foods. The eggs, chicken, and fish, and we go move on to bread and the top.
So the point is that when on top you have a lot of frequency of consumption. That's the idea. Put your diet in a way that you start preferring those things, and then if you go up, you have lower frequency of consumption of it.
Okay, and then the paradox of exception, the next two slides are more so related to the current medical ingredients. I specifically use this information. It's based on a specific case study that indicates the paradox of exception. It's something that was found in one of the health found in one of the medical practices, but I believe it can be applied to a variety of health environments as well. So the case study contains the case of a woman who had undergone medical termination of pregnancy at the 17th gestational week due to fetal abnormalities. The author had discussed, which was also the doctor, the case of a group of the other junior doctors of the clinic, and debated whether any medication needed to be provided to the patient to inhibit lactation. However, recent medical literature suggests that treatment in such cases is not required, and certain meds can also be harmful to the patient. To his surprise, the answers of the junior doctors were to administer the drug to just be safe side. And the senior consultant also agreed with the same with the junior doctor specifically. So what the scenario reveals is how the medical field is managed nowadays. There's two reasons why it could lead to the paradigm of exception, where doctors are treating based on their own individual cases and not on the standard medical medical practices. One could be the lack of financial resources or just knowledge in general. But the other one, which is more common, is the fear of malpractice and the things that come with that, the accusations and the hormones. So it's definitely something that needs to be looked upon and definitely changed to have the best medical home. Okay, not something. And then financing, as we did mention, financing is important. Without financing part of the healthcare. The healthcare system are generally classified in various categories based on the sources of funding. The current medical system is known as the mixed system, where you have state finances that cover the national health system and then social insurance organizations and the funding of the medical expenses of the insured employees. And since 1983, the Greek National Health System established the essential principle of offering access of healthcare to the general population. So it's free, use it.
All the access to this went abroad, went there, and it was.
A beautiful list of references. And this is the whole term's worth of stuff. We do have a lot of references. We collected about 3 to 5 references every week with our weekly essays. And so yeah, that's about it. Thank you for your attention. Any questions? Anything about the course?
So student to student.
So did a lot of these fathers of medicine name do they create the terms that are still around today?
Yeah, like a lot of the medical terminology is like Greek or Latin based, and yeah, that's pretty much where the Greek base comes from. In the back?
So you guys studied in Greece?
No.
No?
Unfortunately, we didn't. This was an independent study, so we just did a lot of research from like Drexel libraries especially, and we looked for like print sources or online articles, like peer-edited articles especially. And we just...
They asked you what you thought the Mediterranean diet.
What was that?
What do you guys think about the Mediterranean diet? What's your
I'm raised with it, so it worked for my family pretty well. No, it sounds pretty healthy to me. And it's pretty.
The basic thing is to use olive oil as your fat, no other fat. That's what they do there, and that's what we do in general. That's why butter usually is quite uncommon. And then the other thing is how you are able to use what is seasonal. You have some fruits now, but you don't have them in summer. You have some seeds and some vegetables now. That's the point, and that's why, if you notice, they said it's also sustainable. It's not only good for you, it also helps the environment grow and also sustain itself. That's the idea. And that's why those of you who follow United Nations, UNESCO, declare it as an important monument, intangible monument to sustain, not only because of the ingredients, but also because of the social environment. Because in order to eat in Greece and other places in the Mediterranean, you have to be together with someone. Otherwise, you don't eat. So that social part gives you a pace to eat and then is your way to digest. That's aside the whole discussion about nutrition, but the combination of those things created an intangible monument for the United Nations. That's why it is like that. Other questions about the course, about the methodology, if you want to see anything like that?
Plan on going to Greece?
One day, hopefully.
I've been to Greece.
Yeah.
As we said, the Greek studies have a program right now. They are expanding the program for the breaks, for the 2 breaks, meaning between the spring and also the summer. Between summer and fall are those breaks, and there will be more options about that for someone to go, not only to take the summer, but also go in the break and take. And there will be an anthropology course there for that, combining some of those things. So, any other questions? I'd like to get you to ask you about. You started about Hippocrates, and do you think that it's right now? Do you all know the medical profession? They take an oath. Do you think that it's worth to give that name in the oath? What's your opinion?
I personally think well, first of all, it sounds cool. The Hippocratic Oath. And actually, I think most of the medical schools in the U.S. and Canada still take the oath. And in summary, it basically says, I won't judge you, and therefore I will treat everyone equally, like literally treat you. And I won't intentionally poison you. So I think it's great.
Yeah.
And would you like to tell us some, because you have differences in literature, how you started, because students here have to go through a literature review for their proposals. How do you started locating your literature, and how you went to narrow down the sets of the searches? Because you have different literatures to read.
Well, so obviously the library is a great resource, especially I don't even look into this, and the online resources that are available are pretty detailed and extensive. And you can, I use Web of Science, which is a new addition right to the library website, and it provides articles that are also related to the medical field or to bioscience in general. And you can define what you're interested for with keywords or years of publications of data and things of the sort. And also I had Professor who helped me out with some of the sources as well. So
Yes, so the students took Greek language, and because they wanted to go further, they started doing some exercise about medicine in the language course. That's how it's always good to have to think about the course in terms of what we want to do, not just about the course. Yes, sir.
How many hours do you think of research you put into this?
It really depended on the topic. Sometimes you can find information really easily, sometimes you can't. Well, for me, this was kind of like, I don't know, but on my free time, I like to research stuff. So I usually would spend like a day or so to find all the sources and then just narrow it down to the ones that I would use.
And it would also depend on how many credits you take this class for, since it's credit dependent. So like if you have more credits, then you probably spend a little more time on it, maybe write a longer essay or different variables like that. So like I took the 2 credit version, so I spent about like 3 or 4 hours a week like looking up sources and like trying to organize everything. Because you want to like read the articles and stuff first, and then like kind of narrow down. So it also depends on like which articles you think fit together into the topic that you're interested in. So it also depends on like where you get the articles, what you want to write about. But like about maybe 3 to 6 top per week. That also adds up.
Did you start with your criteria as keywords, or what else? What was your starter for your search? Keywords or something else?
I would use keywords.
And although the like Drexel Library's website is a bit slow to like, I guess because they have like hundreds of thousands of searches that pop up, it's really helpful to narrow it down. Like the tabs on the site, like if you want online only or whether it's like pure edited only, like all those things, like you want to click those first before you like search up like the 2 or 3 words that you're looking for, and it really helps to narrow down and find them more useful.
It's sometimes also helpful to like look first with review articles that give you like sort of like the total area of the entire study, and then you can filter within the
That's a good way. Sometimes instead of reading one hand in a way abstract, you can have a review article that describes them, so you go there to see if it's relevant, and then you continue. So that's why sometimes the article, it's like meta-communicating an article. So the article about other articles may give you more information about instead of reading them. And as we said always, we cannot read everything. We always try to locate things inside. So what was your experience in annotating bibliography? Because your major, in a way, result was annotating bibliography every week. The summary, they have collected right now their notes, so they can use these notes instead of reading all those papers. That was the most beneficial thing for them. So can you give some examples about annotating bibliography, how you were thinking about that? Because you were practicing, you were learning how while practicing it.
It's definitely really good practice to go through all the sources and then annotate it afterwards so you get a better understanding of what did I just read. And also because this is an interest or a topic of interest for us, it's really pretty fun to do, I think. So it's basically just like an extra note to self, except in a more official version, so that you could read it and really easily like figure out what you just read, or maybe like 6 weeks down the road, it's like, what did I read in week 1? So it's an easy reference, really.
I think that afterwards, if after a year or so you want to think about those papers, you go to your notes, and you know if it's relevant to what we're doing right now or not. That's how we in general read. We cannot, no one can read all the things, even if you are a professor. Whatever you do is to start locating and summarizing the things that are important. That's the most important thing in technique. Hi.
After you finish this, or have you thought of any other things that you get interested in? Any other topics that you have learned?
That's a good question.
So
what was the expectation before? What you gained, as you said, and what's happened afterwards? That was a very nice piece.
So before, we just heard of this class because the fathers of medicine were like, great, we should learn about the foundations because we're all hoping to go to medical school. So in order to go further, we want to kind of look at the foundation and the history of it before. And since we're on the pre-med track, like biomed or biology major, we do have a lot of courses that kind of build on this material. So it's just kind of like a helper class just to get our foundations even stronger and just to help us understand everything a little bit more. And also in medicine and biology, a lot of the terms that I mentioned before were from the Greek and Latin roots. So there are a lot of words that are from Greek that could help us understand it. So it really just helps us understand everything a little more, and it's just fun for us.
Have you guys taken Latin yet?
Latin?
Yeah, have you taken Latin yet, or do they
No,
offer
not
at
yet.
some point?
There's something called a credit limit. It was like 20.
They are in sciences major, so they have lots of things about labs and other things. So they don't have so many electives because for them this course was an elective.
But they don't make Latin for pre-med, you don't have to take Latin.
That'd be awesome, though.
You should. It'll help me with science.
They don't have it. They don't have it.
They don't have it?
We have proposed things. We have proposed 2 things: a Latin course and a Greek course for scientists. Only that. But it should be more than a quarter for special systems. That's right. So see that how they started. Acquiring the terminology is very important. Even if you don't go to the content, the terminology, you start understanding the roots of the word that describe things in the medical field. And then you start connecting them with actual practices, and then with the diagnostic part of design. If you notice, there was they have commented about how some of those fathers designed things. So sometimes the first thing of the diagnosis is to map something or to see a picture of it. Maybe in this age we have better pictures because of the technology, but still you have to visualize something, and sometimes it's the most important diagnosis when you start.
Well, thank you so much for having us here. And maybe if you're interested in something like this, then if you have an 18 credit term and you're like, I have 2 more credits, yes, you can consider doing this.
Dr. Naraki has done 45 of those studies. That's a record in Drexel, starting from Afghani assimilation in the Mediterranean till the fathers of medicine. So a broad range of things. Even those who like basketball started the language using basketball and the language. So meaning lots of different aspects in the independent study. Of course, it's always important how it fits in your what you want to do, and some things, in my view, it would be very good for your idea of a senior thesis. Regardless who is doing that, it was fortunate for them because Dr. Naraki was very experienced on that and in the process, but also it was important for different parts of your majors. Thanks. Yes, and you see that again. Thanks. Because Greek studies always evaluates the effort and the results, those students had a special gift that was designed for them from a design of the Olympics, so they took that as part of their memory for this effort. So it's nice to think that something can be done like that. Again, as we said, the point of this course is to show you different ways that research is done for these students. Their research was based on literature review. That was the idea. That's why I thought it would be nice to see another approach for that. So, I want to go over some procedural things about the class and then see if you have questions, because I've noticed that there were several people missing in the previous class, and also several people did not access Learn for a while, so you may have skipped several messages. So the first thing, if you have seen your Learn messages, is that I have extended the proposal deadline till Friday noon, of course, because it's almost over the official deadline of Drexel. It puts all the effort to me because I have to explain why I did it till the end, and I thought it would be more useful for you to see that. So, of course, there is no other date after that. I gave you more days, but after that noon, we don't have any other time, because then exams will start and there cannot be any other delivery after that. So, again, it would be in the Turnitin that's this part in Turnitin where you upload. Some I have noticed that some students have already done it. It would be good to see some of the comments and then do it, but still that's where you are going to put it. Also, as I have explained in the previous class, I have sent you a whole series of tips about your final exam. It's there in your mails. The final exam will be in this building, but in another room, 103 in front. The same style as we did for the midterm. And as if you notice, I'm pointing out some more specific things from the second part of the book that we are following. Describe how we do probability sampling. It's something that's not applied to everyone, but is very important when we do quantitative research. because in quantitative research we need to select populations that are representative. In other types of research, we are not always looking about representativeness, but in quantitative, because we want to use probability theory, we have to focus on how something represents another population. So that's why I'm putting a question on that. And again, as you notice, if you follow the tips, you are very close to about 3 to 5 pages in these cases with the description. So I think it will be useful for you. The second part, in chapter 8, because there is, some of you have proposed to use experiments, and there are several experiments are very popular in psychology. They are quite popular in criminal justice, and sometimes they are used also in other disciplines. But some of the processes during the experiments are quite common when we start research. Sometimes we have to ask 2 or 3 people that are experts to do other things. Sometimes we have to find informers about different cases. Sometimes we need to start a preliminary discussion as if we are doing an experiment and then decide what we want to do. In some of your proposals it makes sense. Sometimes we do a sort of an experiment to start brainstorming. That's why in the same direction, if you see your book, they describe the focus group. The focus group is not an experiment, it's a discussion, but is a directed discussion to be able to understand different points of view. And that's a very common practice, especially when research is done in business environments. There are major consulting houses, some of them also in Philadelphia, and also others nationwide and worldwide, that are doing focus group. And those of you who like communication and you are good with people, you may like to think of it, because there is no degree for that. There is a special certification in one or two places around the Maryland area, where you can take a certificate to be a moderator. Being a moderator is one of the best paid jobs in the US, because you need to be able to deal with different people for a random topic. I give you a piece of a new drug, let's try to see how doctors think about that. Then I give you the package of the drug, and then they go to see how consumers react on that. And I put you in a room with a discussion, an agency selecting the people who come, and I need to give me a report that is very important for all companies. On the other hand, you can have a focus group just to evaluate some type of policy, or to see are people satisfied in drug selling. Let's do a focus group to see what are the topics that arise, and then continue to go deeper. So the moderator who is able to do a discussion with experts, or do a discussion with a lay person, or do a discussion with students, or do a discussion with policy makers, all those different groups could be in a focus group. That's why the one who is able to do that usually are quite a small number of people, and they travel all over the country. That's a way to see. And there is a major agency about focus group close to, if you go to Benjamin Franklin Parkway, in the start of that, where they have the hotels, there is a major agency where they are doing that. And maybe if you have some free time, it would be nice for you to go in and participate, just to see how they work. So this is an example that is used in other classes. That company is over there. You can register as potential subjects, and they will call you, of course,
they have a motivation. The motivation would be some pocket money or something more substantial, $100 or more, depending on the case, or something that has to do with some gift cards. But it's important to see for you to see the process. There are some courses where professors try to get students involved with that, but that's a way you are on your own. You can register. That's one example because it's close here in Philadelphia. You can register and they will ask you about some attributes of your personality and your habits in life in order to see if your case fits in any of those groups. Because every day they do several tens of them in their studios. So today, for example, we may have someone who has, in a way, stress and gets that type of vaccination for some years, vaccination. And we're going to examine what those people think. So we need people with those characteristics. They ask you some questions, and they put you in their registry, and what they do is they invite you whenever there is a question around your attributes. So you may like to do that as the experience of participation and see if it fits your interests. That's why I'm just giving it to you. That's very common in business practices. It's not so common in formal research, but if you see in reality, in most cases, we start doing something like that for any type of topic before going to something more formal. But that's why, again, for communication and even English major, the moderator profession is one of the most important cases for you to think if you are good in communication, especially coordination with people, not only communication. So that's an example for the focus group. So to go back to, that's why in the experimental part we have 3 different practices described in your book. I asked you here to describe about the control group and what's happening with the pre-test and the post-test. So think again, in that question, when you reply, you lay out an example, and in that example you describe what is the group that applies to the pre-test, the post-test, and also to the actual control. That's the way to answer the question. And then you have about qualitative research and focus group, as we said. It's very common. It's a separate part in your book, but also it's usually a starting point for lots of others. If you recall, Dr. Zelekosket used it, Dr. Matatudi used it, and especially in business environment, you can start anything that you start with doing research starts with a focus group. And then the last part is more creative. I give you a very short scenario. Think about the example for your friends in network, for instance, and I ask you to propose another method. The example gives you an actual method, a short one, and you are asked to propose another method and explaining why you think it fits. That's the last part of that example. Any questions about that?
We're taking the test here or online?
Sorry?
We're taking the final here or online?
Both of them. Here and online.
Here and online. Okay.
It's Wednesday.
It's Wednesday. We're following something. We're following the master schedule. That's why I cannot give you a date. But they say right now, sometimes there's a change. Right now, I haven't seen any change, but we need to follow what the master schedule says because the schedule is not done by me.
Is it here?
In this building,
In this building.
not in this room. It will be it is scheduled in another room, in 103. You see in another room. That's why it's good to. I have seen several messages on that, but let's see. the safest way for you in any classes to go to telemaster schedule.
I know it's like 10:30.
Yes, as I said, it's not something that I'm not giving you any days because the schedule is done by the registrar and they may change something because it happened before. So we always follow what they say because the schedule is done by so you always go there. That applies to any class. That's what they say right now. As you see, Coleman 103B. That's the room in front. The eye. Always we follow that. If there is any change, it will be there. That's why I should put it. And again, because whatever you describe, it should be on the basis of variables and causality. Try to be quite, because consistency is important. We don't need to write essays or lots of text. It's important to be consistent. You have an example. You need to distinguish the variables in order to explain them, and then if you have your own example, be explicit on what are your variables and what is your direction you describe. That's the important thing, because as we said, even if we don't do anything in this class, if we are just confident about how we describe causality, if you recall all the variations that Dr. Popra described, and how we are able to distinguish between dependent and dependent variable, we have a very good result for the class, even if we don't do anything else at all. Because those questions are basic questions even for the students who are right now in the PhD level. So it's important to think around those concepts. And again, we speak about the conceptual definition that describes and explains the terms, then the operational definition that gives us measurement. So think that when you declare a variable, the next question is, what are you measuring? That's very important to be consistent whenever you describe something. And that's what I'm trying to get out of those questions. Also, I'm just reminding you that I have left open till yesterday all the discussion tabs, and right now they are closed because I'm counting them for participation. And right now the only open tab is the extra credit from Dr. Porpora. So again, for that you have the time, those of you who want to augment participation. The others, I have left them open for quite a while. So the one from Dr. Popra, that's an extra credit. It will remain open till Friday, because then I'm counting everything for participation. And the last one, to remind you, I have sent you the same file in your mails. What you are delivering has the full proposal. So what's new in the third part? It's the section 5. If you see the document, that section starts as a discussion and further research. So discussion means that we have a very short review of the proposal. It may be 3 to 4 sentences, how you reiterate the whole proposal in 3 or 4 sentences, and then are there any steps that you recognize or any inquiries for further research. So your question was about your topic, then while using the literature and while conceptualizing that or trying to measure, you have recognized some other things. For example, if I could measure that variable in another way, I should have more information. That's one way to extend the proposal. So further research starts with a very small review of the proposal in 3 to 4, 2 or 3 sentences, and then what are the topics for further research? And the last thing, did you recognize any exception in your model? So you had some type of reasoning in your causality, in your model of evaluation. Are there any exceptions that you have recognized and you are going to put them there? So if there is an exception, it may be worthwhile to do research on that. That's why review, topics to extend research, and exceptions are put there in discussion. And in any paper you read, you will see that in the end, they have those things. Sometimes they don't recognize everything, but the place to put exceptions, the very short review of the whole document, and your next plans or next research, if you recall, in your discussion with Dr. Zelia Kuskets, he had several questions that she said that they are going to continue research. When we narrow down the concepts, there are things that we're letting out, we are leaving out. That's why all those things that we leave out are topics to extend. Then, in validity and reliability, that's why, as you see, we have it in 4 subfields. We start with validity and reliability. You are measuring something using certain type of either opinions in questions or some type of scale or factor that comes from the literature. Is there any discrepancy in this measurement? Is there any dependence on the questions that you ask in order to get opinions? Do you need interviewers to go to interviewees? If you need interviewers, it's most likely that what you get as replies depend on the interviewer and then on the interviewee. So you may have a validity case, because if someone goes to ask and then someone else goes to ask, what they get may be different. And if that happens, that leads you to a reliability concern. So what we get there, because in all types of research, usually we have some issues of reliability and validity, and we try to propose ways to deal with them. That is what you put there. So if you recognize something as concern, you identify it there and you propose a way to deal with that. And think that because you are not doing it as actual research, you can propose things that needs more resources. That's okay, because it's part of the whole discussion. Saying, if you don't ask people and you are able to get the same results from tangible archives, you may have a stronger validity case. Also, if you don't need interviewees, then you may strengthen your reliability because everything is controlled from instructions and not from people. This is an example. So what I'm asking you to put there is propose those ways to deal with concerns. Identify at least one validity and reliability concern and propose a way to deal with that. So, again, as we said, the header label is fine, and we have the subheaders. Ethical concerns, those of you who ask people, you need to speak about the topics of your questions in order to explain if there is any potential harm. Do you use any sensitive data? Do you identify your subjects? Do you treat them as subjects? For example, in my dissertation, I was asking people to evaluate other things that happened. That's why they were not subjects. So it's important to know all those of you who are using replies or opinions need to describe if you think that there is any harm. Harm is not only physical one, it may be occupational. So you ask someone about a company and that person may be labeled as whistleblower and then he may get fired, for example. That's an occupational hazard, and if your questions provoke that, you have a major concern. So, the type of information that you ask and also the type of information that you record, if everything is anonymous, then you're quite safe. The point is, if it is anonymous, then you cannot go back to go deeper. So everything has a trade-off here. So the ethical part is, if you have any harm, and on the other hand, there may be a benefit. Is there any benefit of your study? And think again, the benefit is not your compensation. Someone paid me to do a research, it's not that benefit because it's my compensation. The point is, from the result of the study, who is to benefit? If there is a benefit there, the people that you use need to know that. So that's the other side of the ethical concern. And the last part is, again, to use Turnitin as I showed you in the last class. Those of you who are not here, you can easily watch the video because I was quite detailed in examples of Turnitin. If you are not citing something properly, you are unethically coached towards science. So, how consistent we are in the references and how we use quotes if they are needed, it's part of the ethical responsibility towards science. And that's why the last part, if you see, 5.4, you could say, for example, if you recall again, Dr. Zekusketsi said they used that Wikipedia script to take data. Someone would say, okay, let's go to the users, as some of you asked for. Let's go to the users to see, do they connect language with gender and also place of origin? Well, that would be a way to propose an alternative method or describe any rebuttals. The rebuttals here would be any exceptions in your reasoning or in your causality model. And the last part of the proposal number 6 has the full bibliographic case. So I can put you an example there. It's always important to have the author, a date, and the publication in a way medium. If it's something online, the online location is just a place. It's important to identify the topic. So if you find something in a website that you think is credible to use, you need to identify the actual text, not the website. The website should be in the end that this piece is at somewhere, meaning that it's not printed, it is somewhere stored. So the source is not the online storage, it is the actual text that is stored there. That's why it's important not to just put websites. There's no point of it. The website should be in the end of any reference, saying this one up there.
So should we do MLA or what should we do?
As I put, I don't care. My point is to be consistent. You can do whatever, even your own system, but be consistent. So, the name, the date, and the actual title of the source should be there. If there is another comma, because those styles have different issues in italics and this, I don't care. The important thing for me is to be consistent in whatever you choose. If you like to have a standard, that's good because it helps you in other cases. It's important to have that. And again, if you are using this citation in your text, you just put the names and the date inside your text. Don't give me titles inside the text, because some of you are using it. Full references will be then. Inside the text we have the name and the date. If there is a coincidence that we have the same name, sometimes it happens, some authors, there are some people with same names, you can have A, B, and C, but in general, the name and the date gives you the actual reference inside your text. So this is the additional part. As we said, this is page 3, but what you deliver is the whole document, as we said. So this is the new part that you are doing, and as you see, these are things that we have discussed, and we try to put it in a proper order in order to be in the same line with the other part of the proposal. So it's section 5 and 6. 5 discussion and further research, and 6 bibliography. These are the two things that add in your proposal, but you deliver again the whole document. And think that then, as the students have just said, you have a whole document in which you may identify some gaps, but you have something that you can claim. The process and the iterations we have done are part of your thinking, in a way, practice. Some of you may have a result towards another class, but the point was to get you to structure your thoughts in a way that is consistent with how people do research in different disciplines and in different sectors. That's why we have that document. So again, to remind you, because some students had used all those aspects, if you noticed, especially in part 2, I have put all the different options for you to choose. I don't expect you to have all the levels of measurements, all the instruments. You pick up an instrument for your topic and a level of measurement for your topic. You don't put the others. All these are examples for you to choose, because those examples connect you with the book. The levels of measurement and also the way you collect the data. You don't collect them with all different ways. You pick up your mode and you describe that. So, because lots of you are using questionnaires, it's very important to put topics. If you don't have questions, some of you have included questions. If you don't have the actual questions, you need to put the topics that you ask. And the next thing in the questionnaire is how you are getting people to respond. And in that how question, you have potential discrepancies in responses that can lead you to validity concerns. That's how you try to connect them. So you choose your instrument, you describe the population that you are addressing it, and the level of data for each variable, and then you ignore the other parts. These are different options for you to choose. Those of you who speak about quantitative research need to explain the sampling part, because sampling in quantitative research has to show representation. meaning that small group of people or large group of people represent a population that you describe what is the population. So instead of going to the population as we do with a census, you get a subgroup. Why that subgroup represents the population? If you are proposing quantitative research, that's very important to describe. If it's qualitative, you need to explain what makes those people important for as informants. If you recall, in my case, in my dissertation, I did not claim any representativeness, but I have claimed expertise. And again, not only one expertise, I have claimed at least 2 different levels of expertise and expert performance in order to explain why I chose those people to give me information. But again, for quantitative research, the representativeness is important. That's why sampling always goes with quantitative research.
What always do it?
Sampling.
Sampling?
Sampling, and with sampling we describe probability, because probability gives us conclusions. And in order to be able to apply the mathematical axioms of that, we need representativeness. That's why quantitative is strong, and it's always easier to publish than qualitative, because there are some standard measures that can be identified whatever the topic is. That's why those who think about publications, always quantitative research is easier published than qualitative, because qualitative goes per topic, whereas quantitative goes per factor, those coefficients who are calculated, that are calculated. And again, think about some things in the sampling. Someone could say, okay, I have a random sample. How? Without locating people, I go to the telephone directory and I use every 3rd record, every 5th record. Or I go to a subgroup of the same postal code to be able to identify location without asking people. It's a public record. I have the postal code, and I'm able to locate people if it fits my topic. So anything you don't understand in the structure, as I said, this is the full structure. You take the comments out, you use the labels, you have it till the end, and so your proposal should have those 6 sections with the subsections that are mentioned there. The in-between text is in the explanation. It's addressed to you, so you put your own topic-oriented text, not mine, because some people are using my explanation. There's no point to use my explanation because it doesn't go by topic. So any questions about that? I am insisting because I have seen different versions of it. That's why I'm insisting on that. And again, as we said, on Thursday I will have 1 or 2 questions for each one of you from your proposals to see what is the status and what you have any concerns. Because you can, if you start emailing me on Friday, I cannot reply to everyone, as you understand. If you notice, I have used 2 weeks open for your questions, and some of you did not use it. Of course, that's a choice, but because I have been through the same process myself, and also in the same class for several years, I am trying to give you this exposure and this availability. And because some of you asked me in a mail last week, my committee signed my dissertation, so right now they have changed the title. So what I was describing to you, that for some of you may be vague in the airport case, it was accepted by a committee that had the psychology professor who is expert in human factors, an FAA evaluator from the Federal Aviation Administrator, a sociology professor from Memphis, Dr. Corpora, and an expert in conversation analysis, and an expert in network analysis. Those 5 people were in this committee because my dissertation was a bit hybrid in different parts of theory, and that was signed last week before the Thanksgiving. That was the outcome of my research here.
What does it mean when it's signed?
Sorry?
What does it mean?
Signed, it was accepted, and right now I will have a new title. I have to create just to prepare the text for the library, and I will change my title. That's what we do.
Congratulations.
That's what. That's what we do. Thank you. That's. So the point is, again, because I have been through the same process, because my case, I was a bit older than the other students who came in the PhD program, and I had a different experience, I had to propose 4 different things. It is not happening like that, because someone takes a topic and continues. I come from different backgrounds, I propose 4 different things that could not be supported because the topics were different from the department. And that's why I went to this aviation topic. And I had to find 2 external people that were close to the field in order to support the dissertation. So that's also sometimes a process that may be more difficult than the actual doing the writing. But still, it's part of the whole idea. That's why it's always, everything starts with a question. Whatever if you see the video of my presentation in that committee, the point is, all questions were, what is the research question? And how are you getting the data and collecting the idea of your reasoning? That was the major thing. That's why, if you think in an analogy, the same thing at a different proportion, we're doing here. That's why it's very important for you to have that document in your mind, regardless of this class, because it's something you can claim in any type of interview or any type of inquiry when they ask you, tell me one thing that you are able to do on your own. I have a proposal to support. There are some gaps, there are some things to narrow down, but that's okay. You have been through the whole, all the steps, and that's the most important thing for a class like this. So that was my point, to show you, to have all those visitors. And as you see also, those students did only literature review, but they did it every week, and right now they have collected 70 different papers that they can use in their major. That was an elective for them, just an elective. And that's why think about that choice for your topics, for your majors in other embedded studies. Okay, we are done for today. If you have anything to ask. And again, please check your mails because some of you do not check Learn.
So,
That's what it is. That's what it is.
Well,